tradesman, Jordan Garner. Jordan was the all-state baritone saxophone player this year in the all-state instrumental jazz ensemble, and Bennington won. So one of the whole state. We're doing a number of events around town this year, and we're thrilled that they volunteered to perform for us this evening. And you're playing again? What side up? Okay, you're right.
Mr. Brenner and Mr. Scully for helping us enjoy that wonderful performance. We have such talented students, and we're very fortunate. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Great job.
I'll make a motion for the adoption of the agenda, February 23rd, 2016. Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson, all in favor? 6-0, thank you. We will now have student and community comments. We will have our 3-minute limit, and we ask that you identify yourself for the record. And we would ask if it's any comments on the budget, you hold off until the community forum, where there'll be plenty of time. No comments for now. Okay. I'm going to save my comments for later as well, so I will now turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Sloan. Thank you to those of you who came out tonight a little bit earlier, and of course we hope you'll join us for the forum a little bit later as well. I just want to wish everyone a welcome back from our February break, and hope that we really will have an early spring, but I do hope everyone did enjoy a little time off. I don't really have any specific announcements other than I would like to encourage everyone. The high school school musical is March 3rd through March 6th. It is how to succeed in business without really trying. So I know it'll be a great performance. Our students do a fabulous job each year. So I encourage you for that. And I'll just ask Ms. Fennick to do just a very brief enrollment report. Again, a little bit later, we'll be going into more detail about some long-range enrollments. So, Ms. Fennick.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney. As of February 10th, we have 5,451 students. We have 110 more students now than we did at the same time last year. Thank you.
Just a brief update on the kindergarten.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Papers here. Okay, as of February 22nd, we have 254 children registered, and our projected numbers are 420. Thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion for the approval of minutes for February 2nd, 2016. Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson, all in favor? 6-0, thank you. And now committee reports, policy and personnel.
Our next Policy and Personnel Committee meeting is this coming Friday at 8:30 in the Daily Annex. The agenda will include the usual personnel update, and as well as discussions on the facilities usage policy and our transgender policy update, transgender issues policy update. Oh, thank you.
Budget and facilities.
We met yesterday morning at Daily, had some discussions on the budget as well as the bond. More of that will come later on in the forum, and I'm not sure when the next meeting is scheduled for. Is it March 7th, or is it? March 7th, right? March 7th is the next meeting at the Annex, 8:15.
Curriculum, we met the day before the break, and we had a very interesting presentation on the library program, and it was very interesting to see all the things that the librarians do, and it's how it's not the library I certainly remember, and that's a good thing, and hopefully we will get some of that information up on the website, and hopefully we will be able to. It's up there already. Good. See, things happen even over the break. So that's great. Anyway, so you want to take a look at it because it was very interesting. And our next meeting is sometime in March. Toward the end of March. It's well, no, the 31st. March 31st. Okay, so a really long time from now.
And agenda?
Don't know yet.
It will be focused on the Schreiber Technology Program.
Okay.
Thank you. Were we having a presentation? It's not on here? Okay, we are going to, though it's not on the agenda, we are going to just have a very brief presentation from Mrs. Callahan.
Thank you. This is so brief that nobody needs to leave their seats. Last year at this time, I did present to the board and the community what I had estimated would be our ending fund balance for June 30th, 2015. And so you will see in the middle of the screen, the first column indicates that my estimates had been $9.7 million overall, both in a combination of assigned and restricted funds that would be available at the end of the year. Fortunately, those numbers did come in higher, and that figure, the big difference is in the unassigned number, and that results from excess revenues as of June 30th, as well as expenditures that did not take place in the general fund budget, which allowed us to go from the prior year number of 2.9 to just over $4 million. So this year, as we look at our restricted reserves, you will see that those numbers have not changed materially at all. The only difference that we are anticipating in restricted reserves is the value of the segregated interest income for each of those accounts: unemployment, retirement contribution, which is only applicable to ERS and not TRS, and to the employee benefit accrued liabilities and workers' compensation. The non-spendable figure that you see at the top of the screen in each of the three columns represents the July cost for health insurance premiums, which we are required by law to carry over the value of that cost into the subsequent year. And then in the assigned area, encumbrances simply mean purchase orders that are not completed as of June 30th. Either merchandise has not been received, or if the merchandise has been received, the bills have not come in. And so we are estimating this year to be in the area of $750,000. Based on our most recent discussion with the Budget and Facilities Committee, it is my understanding that different from last year, where the board contributed $1 million to offset the tax levy, and in the prior year contributed almost $1.4 million, that we would not be looking to take money out of fund balance at all. But the $450,000 figure that you see is our expected under expenditures and any excess revenues that would be available to us as of June 30th. Therefore, it appears that our overall fund balance and our assigned fund balance will be relatively similar to where we ended June 30th, 2015. This is important to understand in light of the fiscal stress presentation. Is somebody talking to me, or is that out in the hall? Okay. That relative to our neighboring districts, not just on the North Shore, but throughout Long Island and the rest of New York State, we are in the uncomfortable position of being susceptible to fiscal stress, and therefore looking towards the long range of the school district, not just next fiscal year, the board, the Budget and Facilities Committee is making the, taking the approach that the full board would consider not allowing the fund balance to dip further below where it had been last year. So these numbers are based on our best estimates, and as of today, any draft budget work that I have done has been done with the assumption of offsetting the levy by approximately $450,000. As I always like to say during budget discussions, this is draft, 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 and that these numbers are going to change multiple times. They've changed multiple times just since we received a message from the Comptroller's Office relative to the outstanding LIPA issue, which indicated that we had to revise last year's levy downward by $4 million in preparing the tax levy limit formula for this year. So the information that board members are hearing tonight is even different from what board members and community members heard yesterday morning at the Budget and Facilities Committee meeting. Next, on to staffing. On February 3rd, we provided you with a list of staffing recommendations that Dr. Mooney will talk to in more detail. I simply want to point out to you that since that last presentation, the only changes that you see on this page and the subsequent one are on the lower portion of the page where it says physical education. The number changed from a 1.0 to a 0.7 in phys ed, and at the top of the page where it says elementary sections 5.0, that is still the need, but understand that that is a programmatic need. For the purpose of budget, it is one fewer because there is going to be a transfer that happens within the district that eliminates the need for an additional staff member. So this grand total on the next page, which has not changed in terms of the supervisor of operation, the security aides, or the teaching assistant, this number has been reduced by approximately $125,000 from our last meeting. And none of these positions have been considered in any draft budget at this time because it is not possible within the cap itself. Dr. Mooney, I don't know if you want to speak any further right now to these items or whether we just want to address questions from the board.
The only thing that I just want to add is what we have been saying all along, is that these are the staffing needs that administration believes we require for our programs for the 16-17 school year. That is not to say that we actually don't need additional staffing, but we the administration has gone back and we've prioritized, and this is where we feel we will work through for next year. Again, understanding right now that these positions are not part of a budget that keeps us within the levy limit, but we've given very careful consideration to these staffing requests. So and we did go back to administration following the February 3rd budget presentation, and our administrators worked with central administration to bring some reductions, again, to get us to be able to have a budget that we can present that is within the levy limit. So we've seen some reductions in our materials, supplies, equipment codes, and some other various codes. So, but we will discuss some of this in a little bit more detail during the forum, but I just wanted to be clear about where we were with our staffing recommendations at this time.
The board have any questions now, or?
Mary, because I'm just a little confused. You said the state controller's office said something about $4 million from last year's budget. When you say last year, do you mean the budget right now or last year's budget?
The budget in which we are living now requires the Board of Education in August to adopt a levy based on what the community has authorized. This community authorized a levy last year of $132 million. We've talked a little bit about LIPA, and because of the LIPA situation, the levy was unilaterally reduced by $4 million, and that money was put into pilot monies. Both pilots and the levy from the prior year become part of the formula for calculating this year's levy limit. So when the flyer was put out for the forum, I believe the number might have been 0.65% as a levy limit. With the adjustments due to the pilots and the levy, that number then adjusted to 0.85, and that's where the levy limit budget increase would be.
It's on the 132 minus 4 million or 132?
It's on $128 million as the current year levy. The increase is on 128 instead of on 132, yes. So there is a loss. I didn't sit down and figure out that number today, what the difference is, but I think it may be somewhere around $30,000 less in levy.
Thanks. Could you go back to the other slide for a minute? I see the 450,000 in the last column under appropriated, but there seems to be like a $600,000 difference in the unassigned between 630.05 and projected for 630.16. Does that mean we'll have about another $600,000 overage?
That's what we're hoping for, based on where we are now versus where we were last year at this time.
And will that get us out of fiscal stress?
No.
What do we need to get out of fiscal stress?
I think it will take a trend of more than 1 year to drop the trend line. We're at 31%. We need to be below 25 to be, that's where the susceptible comes in. And fund balance is the weighted the heaviest among the 4 financial categories for fiscal stress. It's 50% of the total value of however they calculate.
So putting more money back into the fund balance wouldn't necessarily help us get off fiscal stress. You know, if we were to take that $450,000 and throw it into the fund balance and come up to 5.2, we would still be in fiscal stress?
I think we would be for 1 more year, yeah.
And does fiscal stress affect our ratings at all with Moody's and Standard & Poor's, or is it just something that the newspapers like but nobody really cares about?
Well, they are, the State Comptroller's Office and Moody's are totally different agencies. We were recently re-rated with Moody's, or reviewed by Moody's, and maintained our ratings of AA1.
Okay, so this won't affect our cost on the bond going forward, then, being under fiscal. What the controller says doesn't necessarily affect our cost of borrowing because Moody's looks at their own figures and makes their own assessments.
I would say so based on my knowledge at this point, yes, you're
Okay,
correct.
well, that's comforting to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Mrs. Callahan. I will now move the action items A1 through D12. Do I have a second? Anyone? Mrs. Johnson? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. I just want to give a word of thanks to the J.D. Blumenfeld Memorial Scholarship Fund and the Noah Krieger Scholarship Fund for their generous donations to the school district. We'll now go to old business and new business. Ms. Nadolny?
I just wanted to make it aware, just in case you hadn't heard, that our former Commissioner of Education, John King, has been put up for the United States Department of Education Secretary, and our president is starting confirmation hearings, from what I believe, for Mr. King to be the head of the U.S. Department of Education. A lot of us in New York State are not really necessarily happy about that, and I know that there's a lot of information out there to pass on to other people to express our feelings. I personally am not necessarily one of those thrilled people that he is going to be the face of our education department, but I did just want to make it aware.
Thank you. All right.
Also, if we could get an update, I know Mrs. Naldoni is going up to the Capitol Conference on Albany, and she's bringing a package of all those letters we got on the GEA, and we got a quite sizable number, which is going to be great, and we're going to get hopefully nice pictures of her handing boxes of letters to our legislators. So, well, we'll use smaller boxes, so you can have multiple. Right. Anyway, so we thank you all for sending in the letters, and we believe that they will have an impact, and they will be hand-delivered like we said. So thank you very much for all of your support.
We will now have another opportunity for the community to be heard. Anyone wants to be heard now? No? Okay, thank you. Then we will adjourn.